Hi, everyone, and welcome to another episode of From a Woman to a Leader. I'm your host, Limor Bergman Gross, and I have a pleasure today speaking with Ariana Flores. Ariana Flores is a cybersecurity consultant. She's also a Latina woman. And we're going to talk about how she transitions from public relations to tech and becoming a senior cybersecurity consultant. And also, she's going to share some tips for Latina women in tech. So, especially if you are a woman in tech that perhaps got into tech from a non-technical background, this episode is definitely for you. Tune in. Thank you so much. Hi, Ariana. Welcome. Thank you so much for being here today.
Hi, Limor. Thank you so much for having me. I'm very excited to talk to you today.
Likewise. And let's start maybe if you can share, Ariana, what inspired your initial interest in technology, especially, coming from a public relations background?
Certainly. This was inspired by my initial communications education. As I was going through my public relations degree, I also wanted to minor in digital marketing analytics. This was during a time where organizations were exploring their shift to digital, and so here in this minor, there were a lot of courses about how to use consumer data to gain insights and how digitization could help businesses, particularly smaller businesses, be very scrappy and creative. And so that created the spark to say, okay, technology is something that's going to be very big in helping organizations in the future.
That's wonderful. And how did you make the transition? Would love to hear that from public relations into cybersecurity.
It was a big one. I practiced in public relations in a couple of industries. And while it gave me a great background in devising a strategy for organizations as well as building relationships, it really didn't give me that piece of being able to leverage data and leverage technology to drive value for the organization. And so I began to look at opportunities in postgraduate education where that could have a focus on both business and technology. And Florida International University offered an MIS program that focused on that, but it also required technical background, which I didn't have. And so I tried to find the best language that I could learn very quickly and try to get my hands on. So I taught myself SQL to be able to enter the program, and then the program kind of enabled the additional learning and background in the field. And that really started my career in technology.
Oh, that's fascinating. And thank you for sharing that. And basically, you decided, although you came from public relations, you decided you want to go into technology and you taught yourself SQL. Can you share, like, from your experience, especially, if there are women out there thinking about maybe making a shift themselves? How did you go about learning something technical yourself when you don't have the technical background?
Definitely. I did a lot of research, not just in what I wanted to learn, but the how. I found that once I realized that I wanted to learn SQL specifically, it was a lot of trial and error in finding platforms that really targeted their learning to how I tend to learn. And so it was hard to stay engaged with certain platforms where it was very um, text based, and I found that a platform that gamified the learning was
Mm.
very beneficial in not just giving me the information, but also in my retaining of the information. It became more practical in that way.
Wow, interesting. And what do you mean by gamifying? Can you give some insights or examples?
Yeah, definitely. It became a challenge in how I learned, and how it reinforced my learning by, getting points and essentially building little challenges throughout the day to be able to um, create these like lines of code. And so having that to look forward to at the end of my day, okay, today I gained X amount of points by being able to learn these new features was very helpful in keeping me motivated, and then also in building that practical knowledge. I think sometimes in learning, it's very easy to learn it theoretically, but then putting it into practice is where it really reinforces.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think that with anything, not just technology, when you learn something new, if you don't practice it, it's very hard because how do you remember everything? You just learn something and you forget about it, a minute after if you don't practice it.
Definitely. And it comes to a point where you want to be able to use the muscle a couple of times to then become a true expert. And then I think another piece of it was then being able to explain what I've learned to somebody else. And so I would practice a lot either with my friends or with my husband. I'm like, I know you won't understand this, but let me just try to get it out there so that I can feel like, okay, I am understanding this.
Yeah, I mean, I think that you mentioned a great point. When you actually teach others or try to explain to others what you learn, it gets your learning to a different level. A lot of times, I tell my kids, right, they have twins and a lot of times they practice math together. So I tell them, well, actually explain to each other, because then you learn even better.
Definitely. And that's also something that has been very helpful in a career as a consultant because sometimes while I am the technical expert in the room, I might be talking to clients that are not that technical in depth. They understand it holistically, but in trying to resolve a challenge, I really have to be able to oscillate between how deep in technical language do I go, and then how can I elevate some of these challenges to be able to put it in business context. And so being able to truly like navigate between the in-depth technical and then the broader view has been really helpful, and that comes from being able to explain and teach something.
Yeah. And how do you bridge? This is, by the way, you mentioned a very important point. A lot of times for technical people, it's very difficult to explain technical terms to non technical people. Do you have any tips about how do you bridge the gap between someone who is, very technical to someone who is less technical?
Yes. One of the main points that I've learned is being able to bring in the business context is truly helpful to level set in an organization. And so, if you are facing an issue that is very technical, bringing it into how it will affect the organization as a whole is something that will enable everyone in the room to start at a certain baseline, and then you can say, and if you'd like additional information, we can get deeper into the granularities of how this is affecting the application, the system, or the department in general.
Hmm.
But I think level setting with the business context of how it can affect the organization is a good way to bridge that gap.
Yeah, perfect. And you started as a consultant. Well, what kind of challenges did you face? Like, coming there as a woman in a very male dominant field, being a consultant for cybersecurity. Can you share some challenges that you faced?
Definitely, you hit the nail on the head. I think some of the main challenges that I've faced come from areas of vulnerability when you're in a room and you find yourself being the only woman in a very male dominated field. And then, not only that, the only woman of color. And sometimes the youngest person in the room. I've balance between all of those different stages. And I think it's become an active practice of not just finding my voice and fighting some of that imposter syndrome that seeps in, especially not having the traditional background in technology, but also being able to bring my most authentic self to the room because that's where I think I can bring the most value. And so I think in those situations where I have felt either insecure or like not up to the challenge, reminding myself that my nuance, the what I can bring to the table is also important in this room, and it's the reason why I'm in the room in the first place.
For sure. I mean, this is so important because a lot of times we try to compare ourselves to other, oh, I'm not like the other men in the room. And
Right.
especially, for you that you didn't study computer science as like your undergrad, that comes, and I hear that, by the way, from other women, that comes with another kind of bag of, oh, I'm not like everyone else. I transitioned. Am I considered equal? I'm a woman. I'm a woman of color. I don't come from I wasn't born with the keyboard in my hand. Like, am I gonna be treated seriously?
Right. And we come into the room with that perception, but the reality is that the client is hiring us as a consulting firm, and so they are putting trust that they hired the right people and that they're bringing the right people to these conversations. And so by default, I am the right person to be in this room. It's just the confidence to build that. And I think something that has guided me in that is that maybe I didn't have the experience that the people in the room have, but I will make sure that I'm the most prepared person in that room because nobody's going to out prepare me to have these conversations.
Yeah, wonderful. And I'll say something else, you come with a different background in public relations. That brings your own values and perspective, right? I mean, you bring other values to the table, not just a technical piece, maybe, the communication piece, maybe other things that you bring that maybe someone else coming purely like from technical background doesn't have.
Absolutely. And, the experience that I had in my previous career is not something that I consider wasted or irrelevant in any way. If anything, it's become one of my strengths. Like you said, that background enabled me to quickly be able to bring technology into a business context, to be able to communicate with different people and then create a strategy. And so the technical part will always be there. And the reality is that technology changes so often that we have to quickly ramp up in that area. But being able to have those core communication skills have been one of my biggest strengths.
Wow, that's great. Yeah, and I guess I want to send a message to our listeners out there that always consider every experience that you have in life, both professional and personal life, as something that you bring to the table and something valuable, right? I mean, a lot of times there are even, you know, um, people that take a break to take care of children or parents. You earn experiences no matter what you do, and those are valuable.
Definitely. Every step that you take through life builds who you are and what you bring into a room. And so, whether it is your experience in school, your experience as a mother, your experience as a wife, your experience as the son and daughter to an immigrant, all of those carry you through life.
Yeah, and let's talk about, the Latinas in Tech chapter in Miami. Can you share a little bit about that and your involvement?
Yes, definitely. So, to level set, Latinas in Tech is a nonprofit organization that focuses on professional development, recruiting, and mentorship for Latina women. And so the chapter in Miami initially launched in 2018. And one of my mentors, um, he actually said, "Hey, there's this new chapter opening up. I think it would be really great for you to network with other like minded women." And I signed up, but there wasn't a lot of traction after that. And it wasn't until 2021 that they were looking for new leaders. And it was the perfect time to get involved. And so I signed up to be one of the five Miami leaders that essentially were tasked with revitalizing the chapter. And this was very timely because it came during the Miami tech movement. And while it was great because a lot of opportunities were coming to Miami, not a lot of those opportunities were going to local Miami women. And so I became very passionate about opening those doors for people within the community to be able to take advantage of those roles coming in.
Absolutely, yeah. And what are the things that you do in Latinas in tech? What kind of activities you do there?
Definitely. We began with the concept of creating a community that enabled a safe space for women to network. And so we started with identifying what were the platforms where it would be best to create that, what would be the best communication channels. And then the next phase of it was what are the events that would really help this community? Is it and we identified that a lot of women were trying to break into technology. And so we devised sessions around breaking into technology, how to find the right opportunities, and then also through that, like I said, creating a safe space for women to network and feel comfortable asking questions that they might not ask in a very male dominated space. How do I enter this? What are the right things to learn? Who are the right people to talk to? And we saw not only significant growth of the chapter. I think from 2021 to now, it's grown to over 300 women and it's very active. But we've also seen opportunities of people in tech roles that they've been wanting for a really long time. Suddenly, those opportunities were opening themselves up. So I'm so proud of that work.
Wow, this is really incredible. And I think that you mentioned one point that I wanted to highlight here, like the safe space. And this is so much needed. Like feeling like you're not alone. You have others like you. You can be vulnerable. You can share challenges that you face. You can share maybe some insecurities, things that you don't know, and you want someone to ask without being judged. This is so important.
Definitely. And another subset of that became venture capital for Latina women. These are women that are entrepreneurs and they're starting their business. And so we wanted to provide a space where they could capitalize on that. Latina investment professionals only make up around 2% of the venture capital industry, despite composing 19% of the US population. And so we wanted to open up those opportunities and be able to say, hey, this is a resource that you can use to be able to grow your business, your network.
Yeah, this is so much needed. I mean, thank you so much for doing that. And
Yeah, it's one of the best experiences.
yeah, and do you have any advice for Latina women that either want to break into tech or they are in tech already? What kind of advice would you give them?
I would say a couple of things. One, don't underestimate the power that you have to be able to prepare yourself for something. And I think I say that with the mindset that imposter syndrome is always going to creep in. That's always going to be something that we're going to have to fight. But I think the power of preparation uh, sets you up to take advantage of the opportunities that will come your way. The second one, I say network. Build a network, connect with people, and do it for the sake of finding that human connection. I think if we network just for professional gain, sometimes it can feel a little too transactional, but down the line, you never know how the people you meet will affect your path. And so, like, this is something that comes from my PR background. Being able to maintain good relationships is going to really take you further. And I think just have the audacity to start. I think women often we want to be perfectionists, and so it takes us longer to get there because we want everything to be perfect. I met someone that said, "Hey, I've launched 26 businesses and failed at 25. My 26th one hit." And that was so impactful because sometimes we're so afraid of failure that we don't even launch, but you don't know what's at the other end of that failure. It can lead to something amazing.
Yeah, not everyone has has the strength to fail 25 times.
I agree with that. It takes a lot. Yeah.
But I agree with you. I mean, you have to be willing to fail. And I think one of the challenges, I see it, to be honest, I see it a lot on my kids because they're in the school. The school system really, at least, based on my experience, does not value failure. And we are taught that we have to succeed, and failure is a bad thing.
Yes. Yeah.
But in
With that.
life,
No, and that's also, I mean, sometimes we don't have the privilege of failure. I know that starting out in my career, the only thing on my mind was my parents came here to give me this opportunity. I want to give them the life that they deserve. And so a lot of that has been built into me, and I didn't take certain opportunities of free internships because I couldn't work for free. I had to keep working. And so that failure, I know that it's very present for us, but I think being able to at least try to get into the space and get ahead of something if it presents itself, not for the fear of this isn't going to benefit me, but out of the fear of I can't do it, that's not a good enough reason. Go for it.
absolutely go for it, and look for communities like Latinas in tech to support you, because support is very, very important, having a support system.
Absolutely. I think, the people around me have definitely been instrumental in who I am. My mentor who gave me the opportunity to go into Latinas in Tech, people in my current organization that have empowered me to take certain roles of leadership or to say, hey, speak up in this room. We want to hear your thoughts. Like those little nudges of encouragement are always amazing. My husband who said, hey, you're really good at this. Go for it. You can definitely do this. Like these seem like little acts of, encouragement, but along a career, they make all the difference.
Indeed, they do. My husband also pushed me, a lot of times, and I push him. So it's important. It's very important to have people who surround yourself with people who support you, help you, who lift you up when you're down. I mean, it happens to all of us.
Yeah, we all need that, and we definitely benefit from our community, and I think it's beneficial to then send the elevator down. Once you've reached the floor, send it down and be able to help as many people as you can wherever you land.
Absolutely. Yeah. And what's next for you?
Next for me, well, professionally, I am still continuing to hone in my craft. Cybersecurity is something that is continuously evolving, but I'm very passionate specifically about data protection. And so, right now, with generative AI, it's going to be a very big topic of how can consumers protect their data with these large language models. And so, professionally, that's the path that I'm charting for myself. And then, personally, we just bought a house, my husband and
Oh,
I, and so we're so excited, and we're very excited to build our new home.
wow. Congratulations. I know how it is to buy your first house. It's so exciting and really, I'm so happy for you.
Thank you so much. We're very excited. We'll deal with the perils of becoming a homeowner later, but right now it's all excitement.
I mean, yes, there are a lot of things to take care of, but there's nothing like the feeling of having your own home. It's worth
Absolutely.
it. Yeah. And about generative AI and security, I mean, I think that you're onto something big, because that's definitely going to be very, very important.
It is. It is. Customers already face so many challenges with, digitization in general or just the proliferation of data. There's so much data being created. How do you set the appropriate architecture not only to improve your processes but also protect the data that you have? And so that's something that I've been passionate about, and it started at the very beginning with in my digital marketing courses, data, and now it's driven me here, and it's great to kind of see it come full circle.
Yeah. And Ariana, how can people find you?
They can find me on LinkedIn, Ariana Flores, and yes, I am very happy to chat, happy to talk through my experience in Latinas in tech and my current organization, or just breaking into tech.
Absolutely. And I'll definitely put your LinkedIn handle. And if you want to share also the Latinas in Tech URL, how people can reach there if they want to.
Absolutely, will do. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Ariana. It's been a pleasure speaking with you today.
It's been a great pleasure. Thank you for inviting me.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for listening to the episode. And what's coming up next week? Next week, I'm going to talk with Padma Lalwani. Padma is a VP of Engineering, and she's going to talk about her diverse background coming from India and actually also her multicultural experiences from India. She's also going to share invaluable career advice based on her experience working at startups, mid-sized companies, and also large companies like IBM and Capital One. So stay tuned for next week's episode. Thank you so much for listening.